Good evening, residents of Everett, Washington. I would like to call to order the Everett City Council meeting of March 6, 2024. The City Council meets all requirements of the State of Washington's Open Public Meetings Act. Community members are welcome to join either in person, remote, via Zoom, or by calling in. For those who wish to participate in a future via Zoom, you can find the instructions to register for public comment on the City of Everett website under the City Council Department. Please note that we do not allow comments of any kind of campaigning, whether for or against ballot measures or candidates running for office. We also do not accept comments focused on personal matters that are unrelated to city business. We ask that the audience refrain from clapping, cheering, or booing, and no signs of any kind are allowed to be in the chambers. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Franklin.
Excused.
Councilmember Fossey.
Excused.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Here.
Councilmember Vogely.
Here.
Councilmember Bader.
Here.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Toohey.
Here.
President Schwab.
Here. I'd like to ask Councilmember Toohey to lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, please rise.
At this time, I'd like to ask Councilmember Zarlingo to read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you. This council acknowledges the original inhabitants of this place, the Stahopes people, and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they've hunted, fished, gathered on, and taken care of these lands and waters. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, stories, and voices to form a more just and equitable society.
Thank you. Amen. Do I hear a motion for approval of the minutes for February 28, 2024?
Councilmember Ryan moves approval of the minutes from February 28th, 2024.
Second the motion.
Okay, I hear a motion, a second. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Toohey.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes.
Good evening, President Schwab. We do, and we have a couple of written comments. We received one from Steve Fox regarding the gazebo and Nora Butner regarding the stadium. And we have two people on Zoom participating in public comment. And I will start with Allison. And I just need you to unmute, turn your video on if you have, if you're able to, and then state your full name, city of residence. You'll have 3 minutes to speak once you see the timer appear on the screen. And you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Can I be heard? Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Great. Yeah, my name is Allison Du Bois. I don't currently live in Everett, but I work in Everett, and I have a comment about pedestrian safety on Broadway. On Monday, I was taking the bus back to Seattle from Everett, and I was trying to get to the bus stop that is at Broadway and 34th Street. And it had snowed, but basically I found that bus stop to be super inaccessible, and there's kind of a hazardous situation I observed where a lot of folks are crossing 5 lanes of traffic on Broadway there to get to that bus stop. There's at least 10 other people standing there with me. Instead of risking my life like that, I walked to the nearest crosswalk and then had to backtrack to that bus stop. And that walk was about half a mile. So I just feel like that's a hazard that a lot of people are experiencing. I'm wondering if the city council or the mayor, is anyone aware of this issue? Is there any ideas that folks have? Is there anything we can do to put in a crosswalk or something to make that bus stop more accessible and prevent what's happening right now, which is a lot of folks crossing 5 lanes of traffic. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Next, if Jeff could please unmute and turn on your video if possible. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, and just please state your full name and city of residence, and you can start when you're ready.
Hey, thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeff Valuzzi. I am a local resident of Port Gardner neighborhood here in Everett. I just wanted to come in and talk a little bit about the issue of neighborhood cafes and markets. So today we found out that Washington State House Bill 2252 died in the Senate Rule Committee. If you didn't know about this, this was the bipartisan bill that would have legalized local cafes in residential areas throughout the whole state. But after the Senate killed the bill, the Seattle Mayor Harrell proposed a citywide plan to add density in residential neighborhoods, which would include allowing corner stores, markets, and cafes. And I think that Everett has an opportunity to do this as well. We could strike now while the topic is still front of mind, and we could do something similar. We could even include this in the comprehensive plan update that's coming. To put it boldly, I think we should allow small neighborhood cafes and markets in residential areas in Everett. The city is looking to grow immensely in the coming decades, and we can address some of these issues of density now at a time when Everett seems to be growing and improving dramatically every single year. We could strategically loosen our regulatory belt and allow Everett homeowners and businesses to contribute to the local economy in this way. The specifics of this legislation would be ironed out so that it fits Everett perfectly. That things like minimum, maximum size, whether we would allow simple like grocery staples, alcohol, larger kitchens, but whatever those specifics end up being, I think that this sort of change would improve the lives of everyone. We could be meeting with our elderly neighbors for a mid-morning coffee or a tea at a cafe on our own block instead of finding somewhere to drive our cars to. Our teenage children could walk a few houses down to pick up a snack or a quick breakfast on the way to school. There's just so many opportunities for neighborhood meeting in this sort of way. And these sort of neighborhood cafes could bring many of the benefits that we see from the real dense urban living into the rest of the city. So in summary, neighborhood cafes and markets are often the lifeblood of their communities. And we can actually see this in Everett in the few that we still have remaining. It was a really sad day when Virginia Market burned down a couple years ago because we all knew that that was probably the last of its kind in that location. But it doesn't have to be. We could embrace these sort of small hyper-local businesses and allow them to create stronger knit communities across the city. I think this is the kind of urbanism that we're all clamoring for, this kind that can improve the way that we interact with the city as a whole, our street as a smaller entity, and each other in a simple but substantial way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that concludes our public comments.
One more.
Okay, do we have everyone that's been signed up?
Yeah, I haven't received any sign-up
Okay,
forms.
we need to sign up if to speak.
Okay.
Forget it.
Okay,
This town's going down the sewer.
okay, thank you. All right, moving on to council comments. Councilmember Zarlingo.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thanks for the comments, including the one there. Perhaps that's something we can add to our list for the Built Environment Committee to take a look at and have planning and zoning look at that. And also thanks for those who've been writing into us, especially those who discuss the pros and cons of issues, share their personal experience and insight, and especially those who suggest or compare different choices. Those are the kinds of things that help us learn and make the best decisions we can. Also want a quick shout out of appreciation to the Planning Commission that was here last night for 2.5 hours, I think it was, following up on a 3-hour previous meeting on the Park District. So that's total about 6 hours in just this latest stage of what they're doing there, and I think I still have about an hour of the virtual meeting left to listen to, including the amendments. But I want to appreciate the work of the staff, the applicant, the Planning Commission, and I believe that comes next to our Built Environment Committee next week. Yes, Director Gregerson is nodding on that, so there we go. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Councilmember Vogely.
Good evening. Let's see, I have first, Allison, thank you for bringing up the bus stop at 34th and Broadway. So I've experienced that before too, and seen other people experience the difficulty in crossing the street to get to that bus stop. So let it be heard that we'll bring it up at the TAC, the Transportation Advisory Committee. And I know it's been brought up before, so you're not the first, and hopefully we can do something about it. I just don't know what yet. And also, it's really tricky because of all of the construction right there, and so it's even worse than ever. And then we got another email about corner stores, cafes, and markets in the neighborhood, and I'm all for it. So if we talk about that at a committee meeting or for the comprehensive plan, that is cool. Let's see, a couple of years ago, we were thinking about putting in-home businesses, and that just kind of fell away. So maybe that's another, maybe it's time to look at that again as well. And I would like council to read our letter that we got from one of the historical commission members. I think it's pertinent to all of us and administration and other commissioners, committee members. And that's about just, they're an advisory, all of the committees are advisory, and they are not rubber stampers. And I think that that's a really good point. And the letter is much more verbose and accessible than I just made it. And lastly, a friendly reminder to stop at all stop signs, whether it's in a neighborhood or a parking lot. Watch for pedestrians and other cars that don't have to stop, or that do have to stop, but not because you've just ran the stop sign. Okay, that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bader.
Thanks, Council President. I usually don't like to comment on citizen or public comments, but like Councilmember Vogely, I've had personal experience with that bus stop on 34th and Broadway, so would say ditto to Councilmember Vogely's comments. Would appreciate anything we can do there. And then also in regards to the last comment about neighborhood cafes and markets, I think there must be some process, because I know in my neighborhood we recently. That one was recently permitted. It hasn't opened yet, but I know it was able to get through the permit process. So I think there must be something out there to enable that to happen. So obviously, as we look at that, per Councilmember Zarlingo's suggestion, a built environment, I think there probably is some process that exists as well. So other than that, no report and no comments.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
Great, good evening, everybody. I ditto everybody's dittos on what's previously been mentioned. I was planning on sharing tonight that I would love to see the neighborhood cafe issue come up in light of its sad death in the Senate. I think that there are some places here in Everett that could also possibly use some incentives for reactivation. I think about the stretches along Madison and Beverly, and specifically in my district, that there's some vacancies there, and there's just some help that they could possibly use from the city to reactivate those spaces. And I really appreciate Councilmember Vogely's suggestion too about resurrecting the home business work that was done a few years ago to see if there is some intersectionality there. And then also, all of that in the light of, I think, like Councilmember Bader mentioned, there is already something on the books because the state legislation was requiring cities to have it. So we may already have those allowances. So I agree, an update would be great. And either Built Environment or the Parks and Quality of Life Committee, I think, would be a great space for that. And thank you, Allison, for sharing about pedestrian concerns along Broadway. I've also gotten a number of concerns and frustrations from folks in the community over the last couple of years, and I know that our traffic team is very well aware of the need for increased pedestrian safety, and that they've been working hard to put in ADA accessible ramps and the signal buttons to just be louder and easier for folks to be able to access. So it is on their radar, but I would also appreciate an update on how that's coming along. Yesterday, I attended my first Central Puget Sound, the Puget Sound Regional Council's Economic Development District Board. Actually, that was earlier today, sorry. Earlier today, and it was a great discussion about ways that we can work together to spur economic development, and I appreciated the extra emphasis on the need for childcare and access to childcare in the communities. And last but not least, earlier this evening, we had our Health and Human Services Internal Committee meeting and worked on our work plan and work goals, committee goals for the year. And some of our goals are contingent on the mayor's directives that she'll be sharing in her State of the City address, and then also the work that's coming out of the Regional Drug Task Force. So more to come on that, but we have a long list of exciting things to tackle in this next year. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Toohey.
Yeah, I just, excuse me, wanted to comment on Allison's comments, and I think that even if it's just a temporary fix for that area with the construction, I think we should do something as soon as possible, and it just makes me wonder how our other intersections are getting to bus stops, and if there's this problem, there's probably additional ones that need to be relooked at, and so I would like to have that kind of a review of any other potential really challenging bus stops. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. And just one comment on the 34th and Broadway. There's also a speed issue. Vehicles driving way too fast. Okay, do we have administrative update?
Yes, so I'm working to schedule an update on council COVID recovery fund usage. I don't have a date yet, but hopefully we'll get that on the calendar shortly. And of course, at some point in the near future, we'll have the first budget amendment, and that'll give you an opportunity to consider if you want to do a 2024 round of funding for that. There is, well, in response to the comments about neighborhood cafes and businesses, there is a neighborhood business zone in the city of Everett. Analysis of that is happening as part of the comprehensive plan update. So I'll talk with planning staff about kind of when they might give you guys more information and have some conversation. They've definitely been at the staff level talking through the kind of definitions and where that's allowed. It's not necessarily allowed throughout the city. You know, you sort of see it more in the neighborhoods that were established farther back in history, but not throughout the city. So good point, and we can look at when we bring information back to you on that. And then I noted your comments about the bus stop as well. So.
Okay, thank you. Now on to our city attorney.
No report and no executive session. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have consent items 1 through 7 before you. Do I hear a motion for 7 consent items?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Clerk, will you take the roll?
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Toohey.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes. Now we have 3 proposed action items. I'll read them into the record, and then we'll open for questions from council members. So, proposed action item number 8, Council Bill 2402-84, first reading, adopt an ordinance closing a special improvement fund entitled Thornton A. Sullivan Playground Replacement Fund 354, Program 77, as established by ordinance number 3884-22. Third and final reading, March 20th, 2024. Proposed action number 9, Council Bill 2402-85, first reading, adopt an ordinance creating a special improvement fund entitled Walter E. Hall Park Community Connections Path, Fund 354, Program 094, to accumulate all costs for the project. Third and final reading, 3/20/2024. Proposed action item number 10, Council Bill 2402-86, first reading, adopt an ordinance relating to the gambling tax and amending EMC 3.36.051. Third and final reading, 3/20/24. Is there any questions from Councilmember Vogely?
Thank you. I have a question about number 9 and the Walter E. Hall Park Community Connections Path. And my question is, will the path be in conjunction with the PUD solar panel art display and project? And I might follow up depending on your answer.
Sure. Bob Leonard, Parks and Facilities. We have been in coordination with them. I don't think that the art is going to be along the pathway, but I think it's in the general proximity of the pathway.
Okay, and considering that it's in the general proximity and there may be, I guess I just really want to make sure that, because the PUD is having such a community-focused art installation, and then the garden is also very near that area, and if you can just make sure, not that I'm on staff or anything, and it's not a vote, but to really make sure the whole walking path kind of is working nicely with the art and
Yeah.
garden.
It has definitely been looked at, and we have been coordinating with the PUD to make sure that it is well-placed.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
See, quick note about 2402-84, the Flint and Sullivan Park. Two things about that. I note that in this era of high construction cost inflation and supply chain problems, that came in 3 or 4% under budget. So congratulations to the Parks Department and staff and workers on that. And also, I just can't help but note every time I go by there, that park is just full of people. It was one of the oldest, one of the most aged playground equipment sets that we had, and it's been completely replaced and updated and is safer and better and wider range of abilities and all that. But I just see it used very, very heavily in terms of the play value per dollar per person, especially in an area where there's a lot of multifamily housing and people don't have big backyards and that sort of stuff, and it's right next to the water there. That's just a great value. So congratulations to the team on that and for finally closing it out.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Items 8, 9, and 10. Okay, hearing none, we'll move to our action item number 11. Third and final reading, Council Bill 2402-83. Adopt an ordinance amending ordinance number 377920 as amended entitled Everett Municipal Building Public Works Tenant Improvement Project, Fund 342, Program 42 and 43, Fund 336, Program 015 to accumulate all costs for the project. Do I have a motion?
Councilmember Bader, so moves.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, hearing none. Clerk, will you take the roll?
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Tui.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes. Okay, action item number 12, authorize city staff to apply for and, if awarded, authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents and agreements with the Washington State Department of Commerce regarding the application, acceptance, and utilization of Community Firearm Violence Reduction Program grant in amount of $300,000. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, motion to second. Any questions? Okay, Councilmember
That one.
Vogely, she had that.
Oh, great.
Okay, so apparently this grant, if received, is for learning how to use the system and getting the system for the first year. So question is, how much will it cost for this program after the first year? I got somewhat of an answer via email. So, but yeah, so I can ask question by question. And I see that Chief DeRoos is here.
Yeah, the grant is through, oh, I should introduce myself. It's John DeRoos with the Police Department. I always forget to do that. The grant is through the Department of Commerce, State Department of Commerce's Firearms Safety and Violence Prevention Division, and it's for $300,000. We are still, because this grant talks about technology and this specific technology is gunshot detection, there are a few vendors out there. We're not sure exactly what the cost per unit will be. The technology requires you to place these units throughout the area that you're trying to monitor gunshots. And I'm not even sure, because I'm not the engineer, on how many that requires. Most of the programs that we've seen, you lease the devices And what I would want is I'd want to lease the devices for 2 years. So use the grant dollars to lease for 2 years. It's a 1-year grant. So we're still kind of working out the intricacies of how to make that happen. I think one of the responses I saw to you today, I think, is that we would seek, if we could only do it for 1 year, we'd seek a grant for the second year as well. What's really important, this is probably too long of an answer, but what's really important is that we do it for 2 years, because the first year is going to have an impact on our response, and I want to measure the difference between that first year and that second year, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And that really brings a lot of light to it. What locations will this system be implemented, which you kind of answered, you don't quite know yet because it's
I think it triangulates,
new.
like, remember old cell phone technology would triangulate to an area? I think it's like that. But I think if we gain traction on this grant, I will try to bring some experts in to explain how it works.
Cool.
I still need to know, I think.
Yeah, and then it says that there is a public, let's see. The Everett Police Department has created and published a strategic initiative pledged at finding ways, blah, blah, blah. And it says it's online. I didn't look for it, and so I guess I'm curious, is it online right now, or is it waiting to be online? And maybe somebody can send me a link.
I'm happy to get you a link, maybe through Jennifer Gregerson.
Yeah.
I also think there was a link in your council digest. If what you're asking me about is our
Oh, okay.
2024 strategic initiatives at the police department,
Okay.
it's in there, but we'll make sure, we'll get
Okay.
you an easy button. We'll make sure you get a link.
Great, that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
Great, thank you, thank you. Speaking of the council digest, in it mentioned that part of the grant will also go towards building out, through community partnerships, additional community violence interruption programs, which I believe was also addressed later in the council digest of the partnerships with local organizations. So I guess I would just appreciate, since this is allowing the city staff to apply for it, and if awarded, then it's just off and running with administration. I would just appreciate updates along the way of if there's any other impacts to city departments for helping to keep the program up and running, what these community partnerships look like, and I just don't want to approve it and then have it go off into the void and not kind of know what happens after that. Because I think this is really critical. We all want to address violence in our community, so I just appreciate updates
Yeah.
as we move forward. Thank you.
There's a lot there. I'll just comment on a few things that maybe give you some peace of mind. Wrapped around just about every action we're trying to take related to violence in our community right now is a desire and an effort to engage the community to be part of the solution. And I think that part of that, that we're seeing and hearing and training nationwide best practices, researching what the evidence is showing us, is that when you have community-led partners, especially those with lived experiences, it becomes natural for officers that are engaging some people that are not only involved in violent crime, but some of those people that are associates that may be involved in future crime. If we can kind of divert them into programs that are led by the community, then we'll see some positive progress in the area. At least that's what the data nationwide is showing. Baked into all these applications is public-facing information, not only for you and your constituents, but some of the organizations like on Casino Road that are wondering, are we policing them or are we over-policing them, and making sure we explain exactly what these devices are all about. So I think we'll be very public, maybe to the point where like, okay, enough information. So I make sure we're back here, as well as on our social media, as well as on our website, publishing information, just keeping my fingers crossed that these grants get supported and approved.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Just a quick note, I note in my neighborhood, we all have fireworks going off from time to time. And we sometimes, in my neighborhood a couple of times, I've called one of these in another one of the neighborhoods in my district. Fireworks sometimes, gunshots sometimes confusion about one versus the other. So I guess I will say, I assume these systems have some ability to distinguish in that, at least suggest what it might be. So as you learn those kind of things, please do share. We'll bring those back to the neighborhoods and help them, I think, have a better sense of their own safety and risks and what's going on.
happy to report back. I think I'll just tell you now that this technology is evolving. It's been around for a while. There are different companies out there, and if you listen to just the salesmen, they know, their device knows the difference. I think that's part of a pilot program, is you see if it does. One thing that is very concerning to me is that maybe only about, and I think I got this data right, where's Jeff at? You here? We were researching some paperwork this week, some research that maybe only about 20% of gunshots are reported. So the other opportunity, if we're trying to engage our officers with communities that could be diverted into programs, is to be in those spaces when gunfire is detected by these devices. And that's more touches, if you want to say it, with community members that maybe need a little help and assistance with some mentorship and some guidance.
Great. All right, thank you. I look forward to hearing more.
Yeah, me too.
Any other questions? Councilmember Vogely?
Sorry, this has bare minimum to do with what you're talking about. I just noticed that the first red light camera, school zone camera board was put up, and, you know, that has to do with, I don't know, I'm just happy about it, so,
How many red lights?
so,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Vogely.
Can I just add one more thing,
Oh, I
Council
love it.
President Schwab?
Yes, please.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
One of the things kind of related to my comment about communication is I just want to praise Public Works and the work that they did in getting the word out on red light cameras. What we've talked about internally at the police department is that if these things get approved, if these grants get approved, we're going to follow their lead and get out there in front of the community and make sure that they have a voice in the way we deploy this technology.
Thank you for making my comment relevant.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you, Chief, appreciate your time. All right, motions before you, item number 12, do I have a motion? You already do. Oh, I do? That's right. All right, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Tui.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes, with no further business, meeting's adjourned.